Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tell Me More Radio with Tom Shadyac. Tom isn't here today. Is he in Malibu, Art? Is that where he is?
I wouldn't be surprised. A dear friend of his, Harold Mintz, who was a part of the show when we first got it cranked up, and he's gone back out to California to take care of all manner of personal business and life and whatnot.
Yeah, he's celebrating like his mustache's 40th birthday.
That's exactly right. Tomorrow will be Harold's mustache's 40th birthday party. And I'm sure Tom will be there. And I don't know, how do you toast a mustache? What do you do?
I don't know. Maybe you scratch your face on.
Maybe they'll shave it. Maybe they'll reshape it or something. So we'll have to call or something Harold tomorrow and find out what that's all about. But so Tom's not here. That's what you were saying.
But we're going to have a really good show regardless if he's here or not. So I want to start off by giving a little recap from last show. Last week we talked about whether or not the general public's participation in this upcoming election really mattered. And, of course, people said yes. And some of the reasons that people said yes was because of things such as it's your constitutional right to vote. There were also people who said not voting is voting for the candidate that you really don't want to be there. And another one that's been thrown at me was it's your ancestors' fault for your right to vote. And then we also had problems with trying to figure out why we shouldn't vote. Some people believe that, I'm going to use the examples from the clips we used last week. So Alex Jones, the guy from the InfoWars, said that the vote really doesn't matter because it's up to the Electoral College. So even if people do vote for the most popular candidate, they still could end up losing based on the Electoral College. And another interesting thing that he said was that this is the election is not necessarily an election, it's a selection. And so that was really interesting because it tied into the other clip that I played, which was from Dr. Umar Johnson's speech. He said that the president is basically a puppet and that the policy isn't necessarily created by the candidate. It's given to them and they're entitled to enact that policy. And also he said that we're voting for the personality rather than the person. So it's basically you choose the candidate that basically reaches out to you the most and the more charismatic person, but he said all you're really voting for is who you want to reinforce the white supremacy. And so that clip was also interesting because I was looking online to see more opinions, and I found a Malcolm X clip, which we're going to play a little later. And he said some of the same things as far as Dr. Umar said, is that blacks participating in the election really doesn't matter because nothing's going to change for them. And so that's what I really wanted to talk about today. The question that we're going to be discussing is, does the black vote and other minorities count in this election? By voting, is anything going to change in our community? Is our condition going to improve? Will things really change? Are we just voting for white supremacy to continue, as Dr. Umar said, or are we voting for much more? So while you guys chew on that and try to come up with your opinion, you can start calling us at 901-260-5926. But before you guys start calling, I want to get a clip played just to start the conversation off. So, Jess, could you please play clip number 1?
Now, they are fighting each other for booty, for power, for prestige. And the one who is the football in the game is the Negro. 20 million black people in this country are a political football, a political pawn, an economic football, an economic pawn, a social football, a social pawn. And the liberal element of whites are those who have perfected the art of selling themselves to the Negro as a friend of the Negro, getting the sympathy of the Negro, getting the allegiance of the Negro, getting the mind of the Negro. And then the Negro sides with the white liberal, and the white liberal uses the Negro against the white conservative. So that anything that the Negro does is never for his own good, never for his own advancement, never for his own progress. He's only a pawn in the hands of the white liberal. The worst enemy the Negro has is this white man who runs around here drooling at the mouth, professing to love Negroes and calling himself a liberal. And it is following these white liberals that has perpetuated problems that Negroes in America have. If the Negro wasn't taken, trapped, tricked, deceived by the white liberal, then Negroes would get together and solve our own problems.
All right, so the reason that I thought that clip was interesting was because it tied to something that Dr. Umar said last week, again, as I said earlier. And some of the key things that stood out to me were how he said that the black people are just being used as political pawns. And so that's something that I personally see in elections within Memphis and beyond. Most times, black people usually do side with the Democrats because that's just the traditional way. We look to them for help in improving our conditions. And I'm not sure how far that has gotten us over a long period of time, but just based on where we are now, I don't see much progress. And then another thing that stood out to me was that he said the only time that they come around is when they need our votes. And that's very interesting to me as well, because I'm pretty sure that the majority of politicians are really unfamiliar about what goes on in like minority communities. And if they are, I'm not sure how much they do to help. But as far as being able to relate to the issues, they might not be able to because they have money, maybe even privilege and other access to resources that we don't have. So that was another key thing that stood out to me. And one more thing from the clip that he said that stood out to me was that it's never for the advantage or advancement of black people when they try to help. It's usually just for the votes. And so if we want to change our situation or better our condition, it has to come from ourselves. And we're going to tie that into the second segment of the show later. But what are you guys' opinion on this? Do you think that in participating for the election that it's really going to change anything within minority communities?
Well, Koa here. I definitely think that the act of voting in future years will help the minorities. But as far as this election is concerned, it's too late. And I say that because we elect the people who then elect the president. It starts at ground zero, which is government and state officials on a local level. We have to elect the front runners, city councilmen, the mayors, and these things. A lot of minorities don't vote. A lot of them don't even know that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but state representatives only have a 2-year term. Is that correct? I believe so, yes. They only have a 2-year term. Why do we only get riled up to vote every 4 years?
That's a good question.
And these other state officials, the elections come more so than that. Why do our public figures and our superstars and our role models or people that we look up to only wear go vote shirts every time it's presidential? Why not every time it's an election?
Well, I guess that one reason is that most people would think that the government would be the ultimate power that's able to help people versus on a state-to-state level. So a lot of people look for help from the higher powers, but it doesn't seem that we're getting them.
Well, the thing is, the government does this at a federal level. They disperse money to the local level. The state then disperses that amongst their community. So the government could actually send money, but it's up to the state to distribute it. And if we don't do, and it's lack of knowledge, since a lot of the minorities. I speak to this personally. I'm not gonna say all minorities don't know this, but a majority of the people that I know who are minorities don't know that the state controls the money for schools, roads, these things.
Keon here. You raise a lot of good points, Coldway. And that Malcolm X clip is it's like one of those truths that you don't even want to really deal with. It's like right at the core of it all. Like, why are we being swayed one way or another? Why is this like 4-year thing? Every 4 years, it's like all of a sudden got another weird media headache. And I stopped making decisions in my life this way a long time ago, where they're like, no, listen, you have to do, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to deal with that on that way at all. And I especially like what you say about getting involved locally, because I do see the vote as a huge power, especially once you have a informed community who then proposes a leader who then, goes on through the levels. And ultimately, our local offices are more important than the presidential offices as a whole. But we are constantly being fed false information from the people who are already at the top, because they want to control all the way down to the local level.
Yeah.
So why is it that we don't pay as much attention to the state governing of our cities and things like that? Like, why don't we really care? Why do they put so much emphasis on the bigger elections?
Because of the agenda and the media machine running this thing. And like he said, it's the local level. And like he was alluding to, wait a minute, let's go back to just stop saying we are minorities. Get back to changing the language, because you're not the minority. You have to change the language and know that you're the majority in your head.
True.
So stop using that language first.
Well, I'm just using the language that everybody understands. I mean, I'm along the lines with you on that, but I mean, I'm just trying to make sure everybody.
And what it ultimately ends up being is we have to stop getting back to family and community and practicing group economics and aggregating our funds. Because if you can't put no money in a politician's pocket, he can't do nothing for you anyway. In this commercial game, because that's all it's about.
Well, let me give that number out again. If you guys would like to join the conversation, you could call us at 901-260-5926. Does the see, now you kind of threw me off with the whole minority thing. I don't know what to call us.
Well, the minority is the figurative word that we all understand.
Let's if I may jump in, because if we can't go between minority and majority, again, like my genome is just as unique as everyone else's. Like, we're just one. So we have to really look at this planet geographically if we really want to understand what we can do. Like, if you look at the world from space, and you look at its electrical grid, the biggest 2 electrical grids are in the southern part of the United States, like where we are right now, and in China. So you have to really look and say, okay, all these things are being swayed from these central points, and we're in one of the central points. So it's very critical for us in this part of the world to be mediators of information, whereas someone in Oregon might need to focus more on the ability for us to coexist with nature. We're much more of a social dynamic group because of our geography. These things get lost because, 25 people figured out the game and they're spreading lies. And that kind of imbalance goes against our whole coding.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about, I want to go back to like Dr. Umar's clip about the people where the president just being a puppet to enact different policies. Do y'all think that some of the policies that are present are made to not help other people come up on a level that is...
It's definitely a bully game with Congress. It doesn't matter who's in office. It has a clear, 2/3 of the triangle. The Senate, the House, and President. So if they don't like what you're doing, you
get booted out.
You get booted out. They get vetoed.
Right.
It's kind of like a triangle of power, but on one end you got one person versus 100, and then 400 plus. So it's kind of a rude game.
It's basically capitalism. Whoever perfects capitalism from back even when oil first struck. If you go back to the major powers who discovered the oil and stole resources from other countries and then created this, came over and with the land and stole the, not necessary, well, I can say stole the land. It goes back whoever gained control and get the knowledge first, capitalism. And this what this country was built on, capitalism.
Control the resources.
You control your resources. So to control the resources, you control the people. So yes, the president doesn't necessarily have his direct effect on the people. He, like you say, he's a puppet. He get the things from the 1% and get passed down.
But what if the resources, the people, and they don't know they are the resources, and they giving all their energy and resources to
That's where I was going.
other entities?
I'm saying, well, we talk about the 1%. Well, but if you pulled all the money together from all the people that are not in the 1%, I mean, pull it all together, that's 99%.
That's correct. That's very correct.
That's a lot of cheese.
Yes, sir.
And if you and if you bring the right movement and ideals together and get everybody on board with something like that, I'm going through that right now. In a very small way. I manage a garden for a local university, and they've decided, I've been doing that for 8 years, and everybody loves that space. And not because I manage it, because it's a wonderful space to be in when you're on a commercial area that's mostly urban. So it's a nice natural environment to be in. However, they decided to make it a parking lot, and there's a lot of people upset about that. Yesterday, it was a done deal. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to go where they tell us to go. Then a grassroots movement started 24 hours ago, and they've already changed their tune to saying, well, we'll let the students decide what needs to happen. And they've handed over to a body in between the elected 1%.
Right.
And see, that's the weird thing about it, because they say it's a democracy and it's supposed to be the voice of the people, but a lot of people have been crying out for help against different injustices, but nothing has been done.
Democracy is mob rule, and the republic is the house that nobody stays in.
Explain. No, you got to explain.
You got to say what that is.
George Washington said the people are, now have a republic. The people are the keepers of the republic, not democracy. That's mob rule. Like he said about the 99% and the 1%, we are the 99%. We're letting 1% dominate our thoughts. And we're going to allude back to what Keon said about electrical grid. You're talking about electricity. We work off electricity. If we get on the same frequency and bond together and put our arms together, we can do whatever we will, change everything.
But it's also a matter of momentum. There's an idea that I've run into all through my life from one project or another called the strained efficacy of momentum. That means that at a certain point you build up a certain momentum, but after a certain point it starts to dwindle. And it dwindles because people go back to their lives.
Yeah.
Well, until you've achieved the product of your ideals, you got to stay on board.
Oh, yeah.
Those are incredible movements that are happening now all over the planet. Which gives me faith in all of humanity, because what I've seen slowly happen over the past 15 years is the way we get our information, we will go from one setting where I'm like, I'm not really comfortable here. I don't feel like people agree with me on most of the things I internally agree on because of what I've read. But then I go forth and then I end up in a place where I'm like, wow, I am just somehow surrounded by people who are internally processing information the way I am. And I look back to just the nature of life in general and how it will find its way to survive. Like, we're talking about majority and minority as being labels we don't want to use. This 1%, 99%, that's another label I don't want to use. I mean, we're 100% here together. You're looking at a year of unprecedented climate change, unprecedented riots throughout the entire planet, unprecedented informational technology adaptations in the poorest parts of the world to the richest. And I'm glad that everyone is looking through almost the glasses of pessimism, like we need to do these things before everything fails, because at least it's like a good whip on our back to get going to where we need to be. But I also still see a world better than it has ever been.
That's occurring naturally. Like we were saying the other day, as the generations, progresses, the things that happen are the old ways are starting to move out and they're starting to fade away. The thing about that is that I hate saying the 1% and putting titles on it, but they've got a mastermind game. It's called confusion.
Yeah, and it's the media machine.
Exactly. And they control the media. They control the banks. They control the oil.
Well, so why are we giving them our attention?
I don't.
Because we're taught to. We're taught to.
It's not necessarily. We are programmed to feed into it, but also when the people own the media, when they own the oil, they can control your attention. No, if you go to the gas station tomorrow and all of a sudden gas is $4.82 a gallon, you're going to do some research.
I might get 2 gallons.
But you're going to do research of why the gas go up.
Eventually, I think you'll just be more on foot.
Get you a bike.
Yeah, and
it's not about the gas. It's about their ability to control what you see.
They're controlling your perception of reality. They can't control mine.
Yeah, but most people are subject to their control because it's like if you don't know that you're being controlled, how could you remove yourself? So it just comes to thinking on your own. And so, like, I'm really glad with the direction this show is going in, but we have to take a quick break. So if you guys would like to join, call us at 901-550. That's my number, sorry. Sorry, that's my number. No, do not call me.
Call her.
I'm just playing. But the number is 901-260-5926. We'll be right back.
If all the gangs in the world unify, we stand a chance against the military tonight. Concept, you got progress, you got Congress. We protest in hopes they confess. Just proceed on your conquest. I ain't got no gavel. I ain't finna fight nobody battle. I just wanna be free. I ain't finna be nobody chattel. Nobody chattel. Nobody chattel.
All right, guys, welcome back to Tell Me More Radio with Tom Shadyac. I'm your host, Jasmine Houston, and tonight we are talking about if the minority vote, even though Andre doesn't like that word, and I agree with him, but the minority vote really matters in the upcoming election, and we all have had different opinions, but if you would like to add yours in, you could call us at 901-260-5926. We do have a caller, Adrian, who has been waiting patiently, so we would like to get to her. Hello, Adrian, are you here with us?
I'm here. I wanted to build a little bit on what Art was saying about momentum. It's not enough for us to just go out and vote and expect that the leaders who are elected are just going to keep the promises they made and do the things that they said they were going to do. I am somebody who desperately wants to believe that government can work, but we also get the government that we deserve. If we are just going to elect people and send them on their way without any accountability, we're going to get whatever they want to give us. We have also got a responsibility after we cast those votes to keep the pressure on these elected officials to do the right thing. And it's only been during times where that momentum to force change has made a difference. The civil rights movement wasn't a 2-month project, and women getting the right to vote was not a quick project, but it was important, and people stayed with it, and people put the pressure on to force the change that was needed and wanted in that society. And the news cycle moves so fast these days that it may be awfully important to us today, and in a week it's gone, and it's hard to get the mass momentum behind you. But the same factors that make for that crazy media cycle also mean that we can connect a whole lot of people really quickly and get a lot of people mobilized to force that change too.
So what ways do you think that we could all try to gain that momentum together?
Well, you were talking earlier about how important the local governments are. It is far easier to have ongoing conversations with your local officials than it is even to call your congressman. You know who your city council people are. They're in your areas. You can go to meetings. It is not hard to get to know those people and to talk to them. Start there. It is not difficult to pick up the phone and call Congress and express your opinion to your senator or your congressman when there are votes going on that are important to you, and letting them know how their constituents feel. And I have been told that those things make a difference. And if there are issues where people don't hear a lot from their constituents, they don't feel a need to respond the same way they do if they are getting hundreds and thousands of calls from the people who live in their district.
So what if the people who we are going out to trying to get to know are unable to make changes, even though a lot of people are getting on them about it because they are told to enact certain policies?
If they are, again, we work in a democracy where it takes a lot of people, and sometimes they will tell you, "I can't do anything about it."
Takes a lot of money.
And it takes a lot of money, but to some degree, I take that answer as a cop out. Right, you can't do anything, but 10 other people in the state legislature who either feel the way you do or feel the way I do. Ask them, if you can't do anything, what is it going to take to get this change?
But they're going to take care of the special interest groups who's putting money in their pockets to fund their campaigns. So,
and there is no doubt that money plays a role. But at the end of the day, they still have voters who can either elect them or not elect them. It's easier to get elected if you've got deep pockets and if you've got a lot of people pouring money into your campaign. But it doesn't necessarily make it a done deal.
I think you have a great point. I've been listening to everything that you've said from the beginning, and you're absolutely right. We live in especially this generation, where the people in power can be pressured by a large masses to do the right thing. A big example of that was the civil rights movement, where a lot of people would claim that because of the United States, they got their opportunity, but in reality, they took their opportunity. They pressured the country with.
And what results did that render us? No
results.
As far as that actually was to our demise.
Well, not at all. Not at all. The pressure put on by that number of people pushed the president to make certain laws and to take away certain laws.
Martin Luther King said, I feel like I'm integrating my people into a burning house.
Well, everyone comes into their doubts every now and then, but at the same time, Martin Luther King organized the masses for a nonviolent pressure.
And he also caught his conscience and said, I want a redistribution of the wealth. I want to stop the Vietnam War, and I want to be separate but equal.
And he also came together with
Go ahead, Adrian.
He also mobilized people to be able to make an economic impact. He got people motivated to shop or not shop in certain places to prove a point, and that hit people in the pocketbook, and that certainly got attention as well. But it takes a lot of us as individuals to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take a stand, and I'm going to take a stand, I'm going to make noise about it, and I'm going to stick with it.
All right, Adrian. Well, we really appreciate your call, and I'm glad that you asked a lot of questions because we got great responses and different perspectives. So thanks for calling, and tune in tomorrow, all right?
I don't personally think walking around with an I am a man sign is taking a stance.
Oh, I would greatly
I beg to disagree. I think the I'm a Man movement gave people the ability to have control over their lives. The economic empowerment ideal that Martin Luther King embodied let people know that they were in control, let people know they were in control of their economic status, their voting status, their status as a person, as a human being. I think he recognized that it wasn't just enough to change laws, because the reason many people don't vote because they do not feel like they're in control.
I completely agree with you, X. And the biggest thing that we forget, even when a movement doesn't reach complete potential, you're bringing like-minded people together, and they will raise families who will educate their children on what it means to be, better, and what it means to be equal, and what it means to transcend.
Well, hopefully Karina could tell us how it could be better. We got another call that we got to take. So, Karina, you're on the air. What you got to share with us?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah. I think that a lot of great points are made about, momentum and, voting on the local level, because how can you expect to change your country if you can't even change your city or your district? But I think, just certain ways we could do this. I heard a gentleman make a point that, the people in power control the media. They control, what we see and what we hear. But the great thing about technology and, our time is that we have social media so that we can control our own. But one thing I don't see is, I don't see any memes. I don't see any hashtags for, city councilman candidate, Yes, they have people, candidates and politicians represent special interest groups that pad their pockets, but they also cater to, and national candidates have to do more of this, but they have to cater to a media perspective. And I think what we need to do to change, one way we can get our momentum up to change our local governments is to use that same media spotlight that we put on presidential candidates to, expose like Hillary with the emails and Donald Trump with the sexual harassment, exposing local candidates for what they're doing, because, they also have to tend to their special interest groups, but they would have to attend to a media crisis as well, which is just as important, but that's not something they really have to address as often because, just to put it simply, nobody cares as often.
How many people are going to stop shopping and going to stop directing their funds and not aggregating their funds outside of their community and blaming somebody else and saying this politician is going to do it for you? There's only one way you make effective change.
Well, I think what she's saying is expose the local problems versus everyone's concentrating on being more national. Have a concentration on local. It's a lot like what we've been doing as far as this generation in protests. One major protest that did an amazing job of exposing a lot of the subconscious that is still inhibiting our communities was the kneeling to the flag. A lot of people don't agree with it. I don't want to put any say on my stance on it, but one thing that it did do was expose a lot of people who claimed that there was no racism left in this world, left in this country. And for us to do that, and for us to actually cause that conversation and upset a large majority of people, the people who still maintain that subconscious, expose themselves, and we were allowed to address it the same way that we could protest within a smaller level in our own communities. We could expose
But exposing, is that actually doing something about it?
Nothing.
Well, if we expose it, then we know our direction. We know where to aim.
Well, we've been doing exposing since 1400s.
But we have made progress. I wouldn't be here right now if we didn't do that exposing.
Well, the laws have changed.
The laws changed because of our exposing, because we pressured the government.
For example, we come out of slavery, and then 2000, Bill Clinton time, during Bill Clinton time, he came back with the
94 strikes.
The 94 crime bill. I mean, which is worse, slavery or being incarcerated, mass incarceration?
Mental slavery is worse.
I think mental slavery would be worse because the mind has been caught now instead of the actual physical.
Well, what we fail to realize is that during that physical slavery, that mental slavery was also present. And that was a system. and over the years, we've been making strides to destroy that mental slavery. But I do agree with you. There have been things put in place to.
Can I ask you? Do you see the Mexican people protesting? They're practicing group economics because family is business.
They do protest. They're protesting right now
on a massive scale. They're handling business together with their family.
Yeah, they are, but why can't you do both?
What do you need to protest for? You have all the power right between your ears.
Well, if no one knows there's a problem, how do you fix it?
There's not a problem. You saying it's a problem. Keep proliferating the problem.
No.
Good health, happiness, love, success, prosperity, and money. That's all you need to think about.
All right, y'all. We got to let Karina go so we can get to some more callers. But I like what's going on. Y'all got me thinking over here. So thanks for calling, Karina, and continue to listen, all right?
All right.
All right. So we do have another caller who has been waiting very patiently. Black, we're getting ready to take him on air. Are you with us? Hello? Black.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, what you got to share with us?
Well, I just feel like basically, I appreciate everything that's being said, but I think that part of what the real situation is, we're kind of avoiding it because, in my opinion, what we're dealing with is a rigged system. And anytime, even to vote on a situation kind of is like co-signing the situation because what happens, that means you're participating in the system, you know what I mean? So actions speak louder than words. You can complain all you want to, but if you're still partaking in the political system as is, then nothing's really going to change up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So to me, if you really consider the concept, like what are the odds of becoming the president? It's like a lottery hit, wouldn't you say?
Who's the CEO?
I had to totally agree.
Look, if you consider, let me finish my point. If you consider that, right? So how can you explain to me how George Bush was elected, his son was elected, John Adams and his son was elected, Benjamin Harrison, his grandson was elected.
They family.
On and on and on and on, right? So do you really believe that these people are coming from the grassroots level and being elected into president?
Obama, they family too.
Right. So it's impossible for this thing to happen without a system and a power in place in the background hidden to the public that allows these things to take place. So even if you talk about the black vote, it's always been said by our elders, what is the black vote if the leader of the party isn't in line with the people? For one, the reason why we can't get any results on our vote because our vote isn't unified. We aren't unified as a party.
Correct. It's
you
very
have to
correct.
Make a demand. What do you want? You know what I mean? And it's not after it's over. It's like everybody got up to vote for Obama talking about change. Well, what was the change going to be? We didn't even have an agenda.
We just voted for him because of the color of his skin.
Nothing to enforce. See, the reason, like you said, even how you just was talking about the Mexicans, and like you said, I definitely know that they take control of their own situation, but also as a political power, they have an agenda, just like the gay and lesbian community.
The Jewish.
They have an agenda. We want this or this or this or that. So they enforce it, and they put their dollar, their time, and everything behind it, but it's not just the dollar and the time. It's also an agenda. The black vote don't have an agenda. We ain't demanding nothing, but part of it is because we know the system is rigged. We know that your daddy not going to be president and the son.
The system not rigged. It's working just fine. You just don't know how to play the commercial game.
The system is working fine for who, though?
The people that know how to operate commercially.
Right, but it's bigger than that because what you forgetting is that we were once property as well.
The Uniform Commercial Code went nationwide in 1954 after World War II or whenever it ended. So everything is commercial and about contracts because we don't have that body politic and the money back in the body politic like you were saying.
My thing is, what I was calling for was to state my opinion, not to really debate you back and forth, because see, that's part of the problem right there.
No, I was agreeing with you. I was agreeing with you.
But what I'm saying is, it don't sound like it when we saying that it's a situation to deal with, and then you say, oh, the situation's already fixed. Just because it works for one man don't mean it works.
Okay, everybody's preying on you because you don't know how to operate commercially around in the world.
Nobody's preying on me.
Everybody's eating off you, sir.
Who is?
Everybody's eating off you.
It's because what the lady had just called and said, it's the economical movement of the dollar. We don't.
That's what I'm talking about.
Stand.
That's what I'm talking about.
That occurs, but that's only one step. Because at the end of the day, it's just like when Malcolm X was talking to the FBI. Why would I want to participate in that dollar that don't even have no value? Whose dollar is it?
What other medium of exchange are you going to use in this day and time?
Say that one time. I didn't hear that.
What other medium of exchange are you going to use at this day and time? No matter what part of the globe you're on, you're using a medium of exchange, which is their currency. What you going to use?
Well, the way that I look at it, because I'm a manufacturer, and it's really about manufacturing and organization. Because product and everything, we pay for the resources.
Right.
We pay for people to do stuff for us, but that stuff 9 times out of 10 we can do it as well too.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
So that's where the power comes in. It's us taking the full control of our own situation and destiny. Until we do that, we'll never get any answers politically. And even if we want to stay within this political system and look for answers, we have to have an agenda and have unification.
Totally agree.
Once we have that, we can start making demands to these politicians in which that we, sometimes our vote is the swing vote. But now once we swing them in there, we just sit back and wait.
I will say this as an African American, it's hard to depict because our ancestors are from this country. It's hard to depict what each individual minority wants, and that's part of the problem. Because I know minorities culturally that want Donald Trump in office, and to say that we can't just say, oh, as minorities, we need to organize the black. Well, we need to first figure out what we want as a people, because when, like you were saying, the LGBT, their agenda is being pushed forward, but there's also minorities in that, and in that they're a minority.
What do you mean? What do you want?
Let me take the rest of the conversation off the air. The last thing I just want to say is this: if we were unified and then we were a vote like we're portrayed to be, as opposed to, like you said, just a lot of scattered individuals, neither one of those people, we wouldn't probably been voting for Hillary, or we probably wouldn't be voting for Donald Trump. We probably would have got behind Bernie Sanders.
No. Why are you looking for another man and another woman to do something for your progeny and you?
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to slow the conversation up. Like I said, I'm talking about in the political system that we're dealing with right now. You don't want to hear my ideals because they are the absolute ideals. I'm not talking about those right now. I'm talking about right now. Like I said, it would probably wouldn't have even been Hillary or Donald Trump, because Bernie Sanders was the only person that got on the podium and spoke to our needs.
To a certain extent, because when they brought up the question about respirations and all that stuff, Bernie never had really a direct answer when they talked about respiration.
When they brought up what?
Restoration.
Reparation.
I'm sorry about that.
Reparation?
Mm-hmm. But Donald Trump tell his children to find their passion and chase it with a burning desire. Why are you wanting somebody else to do something?
Listen, though, without a black voice, without a black vote, why would he answer on reparations? They don't even know if do black people want reparations? I mean, like you said, like the lady that called said, I forgot her name, but we're going to get the politicians we deserve. And that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with what we deserve because we do not take any action and we don't take the situations into our own hand and we look to other people.
That's what I've been trying to say.
Let me enjoy the rest of it off the air. I appreciate your time and everything else.
Thank you for that. I completely agree with the sentiment that you said, and I think the gist of this conversation is, does our vote matter? Opinions, and in this conversation, all of us are in different individuals, and we have a lot of different opinions about how to achieve what we all know to be prosperity. And at the end of the day, the answer to does your vote matter is whatever your answer is. I say yes. So for me, that is true. If you say no, you're right. You're absolutely right. You take control over your life and you can take control over your circumstances, regardless of what system you're in.
I'm so glad you say that, because as an outsider to this country, what I'm observing is, for the first time in history, the African American group are in such a place on the chessboard of life that they should make, as Mr. Black was saying, the universal ideals. if the African American community goes solely after, you know, almost an egotistical of like, well, we need reparations, then they're kind of becoming a part of the other army that they've been, you know, fighting so much. But if, as a whole, as a country, but very specifically from the African American group, if they can force the government to view all people as one, that would be the most monumental thing we would really see maybe in our lifetime.
That's a really cool idea, just seeing everybody as the human race instead of different divisions. But the problem is, like, we've gotten to a place where we have put so many different labels on it. And,
titles and label.
Yeah, so what I want to do right now is go into the second part of the clip and see what Malcolm X had to say about solutions as far as the black vote goes. So, Jess, could you play clip number 2, please?
That in America, the history of the white liberal has been nothing but a series of trickery designed to make Negroes think that the white liberals were going to solve our problem. And is beginning to teach the black man that our problem will never be solved by the white man. That the only way our problem will be solved is when the black man wakes up, cleans himself up, stands on his own feet, stops begging the white man, and takes immediate steps to try and do for ourselves the things that we've been waiting for the white man to do for us. Once we do them for ourselves, once we think for ourselves, once we see for ourselves, then we'll be able to solve our own problems and we'll be recognized as human beings all over this earth.
So what I really liked about that clip was how he said that you can't really sit around and wait for somebody else to change your problems. And so, like, in the modern context, it's not necessarily just the white man no more. Like, that's no longer a valid excuse for a lot of our problems. But at the same time, it is an individual choice to either, you know, take your rights or just keep getting beat down with the system or whatever you think it is. But we do have another caller, McKinney, who has been waiting very patiently, so I would like to see what he has to share. McKinney, you're on the air. What you got to share with us?
What you got, about a couple of minutes?
Yes, sir. Probably like one or two.
I'll just be brief then. The bottom line is try to, you know, make a point and we can get more people in, and when, you know, someone they just go on and on and on. So, but I just try to cut to the chase, because the bottom line in politics is Tip O'Neill. I'm always giving you all history. It was a gentleman out of Massachusetts. He was the Secretary of State back in the 70s, 80s. His name was Tip O'Neill out of Boston. He said all politics is local. I think I may have come in on the end. I think you'll agree with that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, all politics is local. You know, it starts here, you know, in the county, go to the state, to Nashville, from there to D.C. So, but as far as voting, a lot of people are apathetic. They don't vote because they don't know. They're not educated about anything. They're not interested in politics. The only thing when they vote is when it affects them directly. And just case in point, I mean, Bush was running, I mean, Al Gore was from Tennessee, and back in 2000. And Bush was talking about privatizing Social Security. And Social Security was established in 1935. I think I told you all that before. And it was set up by Franklin Delano Roosevelt to help out the elder people when they get 60s. Most people don't save any money for retirement, right? Now, you know how many email? Wasn't no email then. Wasn't no Bill Gates or Steve Jobs then, but they sent letters, telegrams up there, crowded that office about don't mess with our Social Security. You see, so you can mobilize people when it affects them directly. Yeah. But the bottom line, y'all remember, all politics is local.
All right, okay. Mr. McKinney, we really appreciate your call, and thanks for faithfully listening.
Thank you,
McKinney. Hope you have a good night. All right, so I wanted to know what you guys think about from the clip when he said that we can't rely on external sources to help us, that it kind of starts within ourselves to want to change our condition.
When the FBI, the CIA, when the government murdered Black Panther leader Fred Hampton, they murdered him with the fear of the next black leader rising. And of course, throughout history, you have your W.B. Du Bois's, your Frederick Douglass's, you have your Martin Luther King, your Malcolm X, all these different leaders that we looked up to. I think today, the reason that we don't necessarily have an agenda is because we don't have a viable leader in a sense that of we being a young race. What we have to transition to, and what thing Malcolm X in that clip was saying, is we have to have our own personal agendas. We have to have that willingness to progress ourselves, to understand our path and progress who we are moving forward, regardless of anybody else is telling us to do it.
Common vision.
Common vision. Art says this is a common vision.
Andrew, you had something you wanted to say?
I totally agree with Malcolm said. As far as government actually means to control one's mind. And why would we want somebody to control basically the way I think, who I should vote for? Because without the media and the propaganda, the billboards and everything, it kind of take us to, we're not thinking for ourselves. We're actually letting somebody else think for us, and we have to side with them. Why not control our own mind? Our mind is all. Your mind is all. So,
and if I give you a perception of reality, and you believe me, your mind just came all mine.
Right.
And so, alluding back to it's unity together, because you as an individual gonna make effective change within your immediate family. But it's when the family start linking up and they build that whole infrastructure, and you build up, and you can give money to politicians to say, we want this now. And this is our body politic, and we're not moving. That's what he was saying. You're right on the money. It starts with the self first.
It starts with self, correct.
And as a young race, like X was saying, I think, we're coming into our own as far as, into the money, into the favor.
We're still growing.
Prosperity.
Yeah.
Prosperity.
Man, this was a really good convo. I appreciate all y'all for coming in, and y'all have taught me a lot. Some of the key things that I got from what you just said, Andrew, was just letting people control our minds. It isn't until you step back and question the things that you see on the media, the things you've been taught, that you could start to see that you've been deceived. And so it just goes to say, like, do you want to be controlled? Do you want to pick up yourself up from the bootstraps and try to change things yourself? So we really appreciate you guys for listening. Tune in tomorrow for whatever show we have in store for you. Y'all be safe out there.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace.
Bow.